You think your anger is your shield, a way to protect your boundaries and show your strength. You're wrong. It's actually the match you're using to burn down your own house. Most people mistake a loud voice for a strong heart, but do you feel that heavy, invisible fog? The bone-deep exhaustion of winning every argument, but losing the people you actually love. You're tired of the what-ifs keeping you awake at night. You might be right, my friend, but you're standing in the ashes of your own life. Today, the fire stops. I'm going to share the story of Jaren and the Master of Silence, a journey that reveals why your righteousness is actually a prison with thick, invisible walls. But there is a reason you can't just stop being angry, a biological trap that most people fall into without ever knowing it, and I will show you how to escape it in a few minutes. By the end of this journey, you'll learn an ancient ritual to quench that heat and find a peace so deep the world will never be able to touch you again. However, before you can find that peace, you must first understand the invisible burden that Jaren was carrying and why it's likely the same weight that's crushing your shoulders right now. Jaren stood amidst the wreckage of another bridge burned, his hands trembling with the leftover heat that had nowhere to go. He had just won the argument of a lifetime, but at a terrible cost. He lost the promotion he'd spent years chasing. As the office fell quiet, a rhythmic headache began to beat against his skull like a drum. He didn't realize it yet, but he was wearing the invisible burden, a weight that grows heavier every time you feel the need to stand your ground. You see, my friend, Jaren was suffering from incomplete success. He had the talent to climb the ladder, but he lacked the vessel to hold it. He would climb 3 rungs only to set the whole thing on fire because of a single wrong look. But there is a specific reason why Jaren, and perhaps you, instinctively reaches for the match instead of the ladder, and it's hidden in a psychological trap I'll reveal when we meet the Master. He felt powerful for a fleeting moment, but that power was a hollow shell masking a soul that was slowly beginning to fray. His vision was blurred by a suffocating mental fog that always rolled in after the storm of his temper. He blamed the injustice of the system and the stupidity of others. But deep down, a small voice whispered the truth. He was the common denominator. He was fighting a war that had ended hours ago, yet his mind was still on the front lines, taking heavy fire. What Jaren didn't know, and what you likely haven't realized, is that this constant state of war is actually self-funded, and the currency you're using is far more valuable than money. I'll show you exactly what you're losing in the next section, and it's something you can never get back once it's gone. Jaren reached the mountain retreat with lungs burning and a heart heavy with resentment. He expected a warrior who would teach him how to sharpen his tongue into a blade to finally defeat his enemies. Instead, he found Horan, a man of absolute quiet. "I'm here to learn how to fight back," Jaren barked. But Horan didn't argue or offer comfort to Jaren's bruised self-importance. He simply gave one instruction: prepare the tea, and do not let the water or your mind ripple. For hours, the silence was more agonizing than any argument Jaren had ever been in. But there is a hidden reason why silence feels like torture to a man in pain. A secret about how the ego uses noise to hide a specific type of internal bankruptcy that I will explain shortly. Jaren realized that his constant noise was just a way to avoid the emptiness he felt when there was no audience. Silence is a mirror that shows you the frantic, jagged edges of your own character. He was learning about invisible progress, the kind that happens when you stop leaking energy through your mouth and start containing it. Horan whispered, "Every time you explain your anger, you're just feeding the beast that's eating your future. When you announce your righteousness, you get a small cheap hit of premature praise that robs you of your real power." However, even as Jaren began to settle into the silence, Horan was preparing a test that would prove just how deadly righteous anger can be. You are likely holding the same thing Jaren was about to touch, and it is melting your future as we speak. Horan lifted a glowing coal with iron tongs, its surface a map of white-hot fury. "This," he whispered, "is the story of your life, the righteous anger you treasure like a crown." He commanded Jaren to hold out his hand and receive the weight of his own resentment. At first, the heat felt distant, almost numb, but as Jaren began to justify his pain, recounting the betrayals and the injustice of the world, he instinctively clutched the coal tighter. What Jaren didn't see, and what you might be missing right now, is that the more you explain your truth, the deeper the burn sinks into your very bone. His fingers began to blister, the smell of singed skin filling the room. He was so focused on the enemy in his mind that he didn't realize he was destroying his own hand. But here is the most chilling part of this physics, the part that will change how you look at every argument you've ever had, and I'll reveal that secret in just a second. Notice something, Jaren, the master said. The person you are shouting at in your mind is not feeling this heat, are they? They are likely sleeping soundly, while you are here, melting. Jaren's anger wasn't a weapon against others. It was a suicide mission. He was holding a coal that had fused to his identity. And as we move to the final ritual, you'll see why letting go is the hardest thing you'll ever do, and the only thing that can save your life. With a cry that was more a release of soul than a sound of pain, Jaren finally opened his hand. The burning ember hit the stone basin of mountain water with a violent white hiss of steam, the physical manifestation of his ego finally giving up its ghostly, stubborn hold. That steam was the sound of 1,000 lost arguments finally being settled in the deep. Anger is a fire that burns the house that keeps it, Horan whispered, delivering the mantra like a healing balm. Jaren looked at his hand. It was scarred, yes, but the throbbing heat had been replaced by a cooling, peaceful numbness. He realized then that mental peace isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending the world is perfect. It's the sovereign choice to refuse to pick up the coal in the first place, no matter how right you are. But here's the mystery. Most people want to drop the coal, but their hands remain fused to the heat by a psychological glue they don't even know exists. I'm about to reveal the one final secret Horan taught Jaren, the ritual of the cool breath, which is the key to ensuring you never pick up another person's fire again. Real power is found in the darkness of the soil, where the seed of your future remains undisturbed and cool. Jaren felt a strange lightness, as if he'd stepped out of a suit of armor he'd worn for decades. He was no longer a slave to the what-ifs, but a gardener of his own landscape. But the journey doesn't end on the mountain. The hardest part is taking this peace back to the real world, where people are waiting to burn you again. That is why the next step I'm about to show you is the most critical decision of your life. Before Jaren left that mountain, Horan taught him one final secret, a way to stay cool when the world tries to bake you in its drama. It's called the ritual of the cool breath. You don't need a mountain or a master to do it. You only need the willingness to pause before the explosion. Imagine the steam rising from that basin, carrying your anger away and leaving you clean and very light. But let's be honest, my friend. Outside of this story, in the noise of your real life, it is much harder to remember the master's voice. Many of the stories you hear here aren't just stories. They reflect the invisible weight you may be carrying every day. Jaren's fire was his own, but perhaps yours was started by someone else, and you're still holding the coal, waiting for them to apologize. This is why Jaren's peace was only the beginning. The reason you haven't been able to let go yet is because you've been taught that holding on is loyalty or strength. But I'm here to tell you that righteous anger is just a cheap substitute for the real, silent authority of a quiet mind. If you're tired of holding pain, responsibility, and guilt that were never yours, I created a definitive manual for this transition called The Weight of Stones That Are Not Yours. It's for those who want to finally let go, set firm boundaries, and live with the lightness Jaren felt when he stepped off that mountain. When you get your copy today, I'm also including 2 essential guides to help you protect your new peace. Bonus 1. Learning to let go, to ensure you never fuse your identity to a burning coal again. Bonus 2. When saying no is an act of self-love, the ultimate shield for your energy. Don't trade your future authority for a few seconds of noisy validation. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Stop burning your house down and start building your empire in peace. I'll see you in the breakthrough zone.